The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Like yesterday, but it was long ago. Jane, it was lovely, she was the queen of my night. There in the darkness with the radio playing low and the secrets that we shared, the mountains that we moved, caught like a wildfire out of control, till there was nothing left to burn and nothing left to prove. And I remember what she said to me, how she swore that it never would end. I remember how she held me oh so tight. Wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. Against the wind.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 1-800-610-7035 is our toll-free number. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Dr. Eric Pearl. We're going to be talking about Dr. Pearl's new book, The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. Now, perhaps you have a calling to help people heal, but you don't want to spend 8 years in medical school and residency. Maybe you have experienced disease and illness and you yearn for health. Or possibly you have a loved one who suffers and you feel helpless to alleviate the pain. Well, for any of those reasons, you may find answers in Reconnective Healing, an extraordinary opportunity and invitation to learn how to heal others, yourself, and your loved ones by engaging with scientifically measurable new frequencies that are only now integrating onto the earth. And you know what, X-Zone Nation? You can thank our guest this hour, Dr. Eric Pearl, international leading authority on transforming, who became the catalyst for these often immediate, on-the-spot, seemingly miraculous healings of others. Dr. Pearl is the author of The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself, now translated into 36 languages, a book that chronicles his transformation from a highly successful Los Angeles chiropractor into a reconnective healer when his patients began reporting miraculous healings from, listen to this, cancers, AIDS-related diseases, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, birth disfigurements, cerebral palsy, and other afflictions, even though he physically had not touched them. The website is www.thereconnection.com. Dr. Eric Pearl, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, where did this all start? I read this earlier today when I received the information from Jackie Laffin, who's a great lady, and I'm saying, you've got to be kidding. This is miraculous.
Or crazy, or depending on how you view it, any number of things. It wasn't my plan. It certainly wasn't anything that I tried consciously to do, I don't think. The background, briefly, is I was a doctor of chiropractic. I still am by license. Right. And somewhere in my 12th year in practice, I went home one night, went to sleep over the weekend, and I was awakened by a light in the middle of the night. I opened my eyes. It wasn't anything seemingly spiritual or metaphysical. It was just the lamp next to my bed turned itself on. I figured it was some kind of an electrical short, although shorts usually turn things off.
That's
I
right.
don't know, maybe it was an electrical lung. Who knows? But at the same time, I felt that there was someone in my house. You know, like when you walk in your house, sometimes you can tell when it's empty, and sometimes you can tell when someone's there. Well, no one should have been there because no one was there when I went to sleep. But it felt like someone was there, which is a very uncomfortable feeling. So I got up bravely with a knife, a can of pepper spray, and my Doberman pinscher, and I went looking. I couldn't find anyone. After about 20 minutes, I talked myself into thinking it was my imagination. I went back to sleep, and that was it. But that Monday, when I went into my office, 7 of my patients, independent of one another, insisted that they felt people in the room with us, standing, walking, running. 2 of my patients actually looked me straight in the eye and said it felt as if someone was flying around the ceiling. Now, this was my 12th year in practice.
All right, Doctor, you and I have to do a little bit of a cliffhanger here. We have to take our first break. Please stand by. Exonation. Dr. Eric Pearl is our special guest this hour. www.thereconnection.com. Stay tuned. You're not going to believe this story, but it is believable. Because this is the X Zone. We'll be back. Don't go away. Exonation. Dr. Eric Pearl is our special guest. He's the author of The Reconnection. Heal Others, Heal Yourself. His website is www.thereconnection.com. Dr. Pearl, before we went to the commercial break, you were telling us about how you were awoken in the middle of the night with a light turning on, which is strange. Usually, like you said, they're turned off if there's a short or something. And then in the next day in your office, you were also hearing things from your patients that were too uncanny to be coincidence.
Yeah, so they started telling me that they felt people in the room walking, standing, running, and as I said, 2 of them told me in a lowered voice, they looked at me almost sheepishly and said, it felt as if someone was flying around the ceiling. Now, this was my 12th year in practice. No one had ever said that to me or anything even remotely similar before, so you would think that this would have gotten my attention. But other patients that same day were telling me that they were saying, I can feel your hands before you touch me. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, sure you can. Close your eyes. So they closed their eyes, and I would hold my hands first maybe 8 or 10 inches away and then several yards away. And however I directed my hand, they could tell me, right shoulder, left ankle. So it sort of became a little game. You know, after I would adjust my patients, I'd tell them to close my eyes and relax. And I'd move my hands around, and I would watch. And as I would do that, little tiny involuntary muscles that we couldn't move intentionally would start to move around their mouth or their forehead or their eyes. And then their fingers would start to move, or their feet in strange ways. And when they would open their eyes, they would say to me, you know, where was that light you were shining? I said, what light? They said, the purple or the gold flashlight. I said, I didn't have one. They were seeing various colored lights come over them, and suddenly they started reporting healings, real healings. They were getting up out of wheelchairs, some of them, and coming in and showing me papers that demonstrated where their cancer tumors had finished. Children with cerebral palsy, epilepsy, where their parents were calling and telling me that they're walking and running and playing normally and not having seizures any longer. Not everyone, of course. You know, I mean, just as with medicine, nothing is 100%, but a lot of people, enough so that we knew that something substantial was occurring. Their doctors would call and say, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything, and don't tell anyone, which, you know, went over about as big as Nancy Reagan just saying no to drugs. So soon everyone started coming in from different places going, I'll have what she had.
Yeah.
And the next thing we know, people started saying, teach this. I said, teach it. You got to be crazy. It's not as if this came with an instruction manual. I'm standing there waving my hands in the air looking like an idiot, and people are having healings. I'm trying to figure it out. How can I teach it? But a lot of my patients would call me after they'd gotten home and say that when they pulled up to their house, their garage door opened before they hit the automatic button, or they walked into the house and their lamp or TV started to turn off and on, and they felt sensations in their hands, so they would hold their hands near someone in the family, and the uncle regained the use of an arm or a leg, or the grandmother regained an ability to talk. And we found that once you begin to interact with these frequencies, once you come into contact with them with some proper guidance, I guess we can learn to access them and utilize them to facilitate healings for others, and we've also discovered in the process healings for ourselves.
Going through that list of the reported healings, cancer, AIDS-related disease, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, and the list goes on and on and on. As a member of the medical community, how do you explain this? You must have a theory.
Lots of theories, but I mean, the point is, more intelligent people than I are researching this and trying to figure it out. Gary Schwartz from the University of Arizona, Ann Baldwin over there, Konstantin Karatkov from St. Petersburg, lots of people from all around the globe are spending time trying to figure out what this is. I'm not sure that we ever will. I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm fairly sure that we never will. I think we'll gain insights into it. Theoretically, it depends on the approach we want to take. The researchers are saying this is a spectrum of healing that hasn't been here before, because what we have had here up until now, as we've always learned growing up, everything has been energy. And so our healing techniques have been energy healing techniques. Reiki, Jurei, Jin, Qigong, Mahjong, Beijing, Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma. It doesn't matter what names we give them. There are various portions, fractions, or subsets, shall we say, of energy. They are accessed differently. They feel differently. But as the researchers began studying this, what they discovered was that this didn't have just some of the portions of those energy subsets. It seemed to access the entire complement of energy that we've had here and then move us beyond it into a spectrum they say is comprised of energy, light, and information, levels of light and information that we haven't had. Now, this also makes sense considering the fact that, for a long time all medicine was based on, chemical and the biochemical model. Eventually, they started to move into where the more progressive thinkers were, into energy healing. But by the time they got around to that one, science today is looking at informational healing, because there is a level of information exchange. What we can do is we can try to look at this inductively or deductively. We can try to take all the parts and add it up, or we can look at the whole and see what we can extrapolate. I think what's important is that first we look at the whole. Something is different about these healings. They seem to happen fairly instantaneously, meaning outside of the constraints or the limitations of time and space, and they seem to usually last for the person's lifetime. For instance, there's a movie that was released about 1.5 years ago called The Living Matrix, and in it the story opens up with a 4-year-old Greek boy or 5 years old. He had cerebral palsy all of his life, and I was speaking in Greece after an event at a small Colosseum-type setting. A group of people, his neighbors, carried him up because his parents didn't believe in this. And I was about to go do a book signing. I was getting off the stage, and they said, please, would you do some work on him? And I said, well, let me finish the book signing first. So I did. I went back to the area, and they placed him on a table. They took off his metal braces on his legs. He was unable to stand without holding onto furniture or people. His toes would touch the ground, but his heels couldn't, so he was scheduled for surgery. His hands and arms would hang in that palsy-like fashion, and you couldn't understand the words he would say. His mother would have to interpret for the family what he probably was saying. We worked for 4 minutes, not because I only wanted to work for 4 minutes, but because the little miniature Colosseum-type setting told us we had to leave. They were shutting off the lights. So as the friends took him off the table and the parents came over to talk to me through a translator, I wasn't facing that direction. When I turned back, it seemed the child had walked down the stairs from the stage and attended the entire stairs of that little coliseum by himself and was on his way down. The parents ran over to see if he was all right, looking worried. He said, "Nope, I'm going to do it again." They brought him to see me a few days later. He said, "Look what I can do.
Wow.
I can stand on one leg and spin in a complete circle. I can open my right hand." All of his life he was unable to open it. Who knew? "I can hold my own cup of water. I can hug my parents with both hands." And suddenly we realized he was speaking with perfect clarity. Now, this was almost 2 years ago. To this day, the child is fine. This is not the first, the second, the third, or the 33rd, or the last of this style of healing. This is why research is saying, what makes reconnective healing so different than our energy healing techniques? And the information we get from researchers such as William Tiller and Konstantin Korotkov and Gary Schwartz and others seems to be light and information.
Is there a connection between reconnective healing, Doctor, and what the miracles that happened in the Bible when Christ did the laying of hands?
I hope so, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think the connection is, if anything, at least this. Jesus said, "These things that I shall do, you shall do and more." Yeah. And, of course, in many ways, especially around different topics such as healings, 2 Christians, 3 opinions. A lot of Christians say don't do any healing at all, and then a lot of Christian churches have healing ministries. Sure. So, I don't want to come down on any side of the politics of interpretation of religion, but I will tell you one thing that makes reconnective healing remind me of that statement that Jesus made is the fact that once we interact with this, you too can learn how to do it without having to learn technique. As a matter of fact, you cannot bring it through if you are utilizing a technique. It almost, seems a contradiction, but it's not. It's a freedom. We've taught in our seminars close to 70,000 people so far. The book, The Reconnection, is in 36 languages and growing. Of those 70,000 people, a good 20%, meaning about 12 to 14, 15,000 of them, are mainstream healthcare practitioners, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, medical researchers. Another maybe 25% or so are masters and grandmaster teachers in the healing techniques who recognize that technique itself becomes our limitation to mastering healing, just like training wheels that help us ride a bicycle become the limitation if we don't remove them in mastering the bicycle. A good number of people are in clergy who have attended this work and do it. But the rest, the other 40, 50% of the people are mainstream people like you and I, people who work in department stores or CEOs of big companies or drive trucks or attorneys or dentists who just recognize that it's time that we start to bring the gift of healing back into our homes, our households, for our families, and for our communities. And many people start the professions of becoming reconnective healing practitioners to help their area.
Doctor, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Dr. Eric Pearl is our very special guest of this hour. This is truly an amazing hour, Doctor. Thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us here on the Exxon today.
My pleasure.
The name of the doctor's book, Exo Nation, The Reconnection. Heal Others, Heal Yourself. His website is www.thereconnection.com. That's www.thereconnection.com. And the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the Exxon continues live and around the world from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, to everything.
You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio,
Euro High Definition Radio,
and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035.
Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com.
And our website,
www.xzoneradiotv.com.
I believe it's meant to be, darling. I watch you
The light shines down the valley. The wind blows up the alley. Oh, and I wish I was lying in the arms of Mary. She took the pains of boyhood and turned them into feel good. Oh, and I wish I was lying in the arms of Mary.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Dr. Eric Pearl is our very special guest, X Zone Nation, and if you're just tuning in now, you will be riveted to your radio for the next 30 minutes. That I promise you. We're talking about the Reconnection, his new book, The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. And the doctor's website is www.thereconnection.com. That's www.thereconnection.com. During the commercial break with the news, I've been listening to the doctor for the last half hour. I've read all the material that Jackie Lappin sent over to us. And, I was really looking forward to talking to the doctor today because, his method, it has, there have been reports of miraculous healings from cancers, AIDS-related disease, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, birth disfigurement, cerebral palsy, and other serious afflictions, even though he physically had not touched the people. And when it comes to the health and wellness of people, X Zone Nation, I'm for that 100%, and we love having people like Dr. Eric Pearl on the show because he's making a positive difference in our lives. And I said to the good doctor, I said, wow, you must go home and when you think of what you've done, you must feel gratified. He says, well, I tell them the answer, doctor, because it just floored me.
All I said was I really don't think about it very much. If I did, it would slow me down from doing what I'm here to do, which is to move this work forward. It's sort of like when you watch one of those movies on television where someone's been trapped alone in a building and Russian spies or German spies are out to get them, and they've shot them and knifed them and wounded them, and the person can hardly walk and one leg is gone, and they look dehydrated, and the hero breaks into the building and finally discovers them, and they stop and they hug, and you're thinking, not now, stupid. Get out of the building first.
I love that analogy.
It's just time for us to move and bring this forward as fast as we can, as far as we can while we're in this lifetime for me. And then maybe I'll get a popcorn and sit back in my easy chair and say, that was good.
Yeah, well, I hope you do, sir, because you certainly deserve it. I'm very happy to hear that members of the established medical community and the practitioners of Western medicine are actually taking this very seriously.
Oh, yeah, all around the world. For instance, we're introducing programs into hospitals where we are teaching children with cancer how to do healings on one another. Separately, at the same hospitals, we're teaching their parents so that they can work not so much just with their own kids, but we're teaching them to work on children of other parents so that they don't have the emotional attachment and the limitation that brings about. And the doctors and the nurses and the physical therapists there and the other staff are also learning the work. We just introduced this into one of the largest hospitals in Tel Aviv, and coming back in December there, we're going to be introducing it into some other hospitals. We've brought this in the hospitals in Istanbul, and presentations there. Just spoke at the University of Oslo, spoke at Suburban Hospital across the street from the NIH, where the head of the NIH at the time, or the second in charge, was present to see this as well. So, yeah, it's, there's an expression, progress marches forward one funeral at a time. And it's funny and interesting in a way, but it is true that the newer generations are not so politically attached to how things come about, not necessarily even so financially attached, but they're really looking for what's best for the patients. So the MDs aren't worried that their patients are getting better through chiropractic and not contributing, not spending money for the AMA and for the American pharmaceutical any longer, because the newer ones are more concerned with the health of their patients, and so people cross-refer. It's a good thing.
Excellent. Tell us more about this new bandwidth of energy, light, and information that you talk about.
Well, it's fascinating because we don't know a lot about it. But first thing, what we do know is that, for instance, light plays an integral role in the human body. It's not just a metaphysical concept any longer. We know from the work of Dr. Fritz Popp in Germany, for instance, that each of our cells, the DNA in each of our cells, emits a specific level of light. The human light level is different in its specificity than that for cows or goats or donkeys or goldfish. And generally it is correlated, that as our health is diminishing, the light is dimming. As our health is coming back up, the light is coming back up. Now, the model, the biochemical or the chemical model that used to be taught to doctors in schools, or might still be in some of the older schools, but is considered pretty much obsolete or dead. We now know that the body doesn't heal through chemicals. It heals through vibration, frequency, resonance, informational exchange, carried energetically, and that there's a component of light, because the light understanding is what allows us to explain things that the chemical model couldn't, such as how could something happen on one area of your body and instantly affect another area of your body, and light waves explain this. Light also plays an interesting role coming at it from a different direction, which is the concept of entropy. I mean, entropy is something that we see, in this existence everywhere. Entropy is a natural tendency for things to break down, to disarray, to fall into disrepair, for, wooden shelves to turn into splinters, to turn into dust, for machines to break down, for people to age. That's entropy. But Dr. William Tiller, who has authored about a dozen books and maybe about 350 published scientific papers, is known, among other things, for what's called the Tiller-Einstein model of negative entropy, which sounds complicated, but it's not. Tiller means William Tiller, Einstein means Albert Einstein, model means, well, hey, it's a model. And negative entropy means it's the reverse of entropy, and it's the reverse of degeneration. In other words, what they've discovered is at the speed of light, once we hit the speed of light, degeneration becomes regeneration, disorganization becomes reorganization, dis-ease becomes healing or ease. So this light in our cells plays an important part, at least theoretically, in allowing the continuous regeneration of our body, so that for whatever reasons we are here for as manifestations of God, of love, of spirit, of the universe, the physical form that we've chosen to have this lifetime in is functioning at its highest, so we can have and get the most out of our experience. What seems to happen with reconnective healing is that the practitioner, once you learn how to do this, you access a spectrum of energy, light, and information, which you can feel. There's a vibration. There's different sensations that go on. And since we're in this field, what science today calls zero-point field, we share this with the person, our client or patient, the person we're working with. So this light vibration is communicated to them. And most simply put, somehow it becomes a reminder where you could say, figuratively speaking, a voice goes off inside of them that says, hey, I remember this. This is me vibrating as light. I think I'll do it again. And as they return to that vibration of light, anything denser, heavier than that light, which pretty much includes most health challenges, pretty much has nothing left to hold on to. And so it simply falls away. And the reality is, healing is just this simple. And anything more complicated than that is usually designed to take our money, to sell us something, and to sell us on being less than 100% and having to rely on something external.
Exo Nation, our very special guest this hour is Dr. Eric Pearl. He's the author of The Reconnection, Heal Others and Heal Yourself. His website is www.thereconnection.com. I had a friend, I still have a friend, she lives in Markham. Don't go there, doctor. Don't go there. And she was the vice president of a company called Light Force Canada. And what they had was these light arrays that use different color LED lights with different frequencies. And I remember that these LED and this frequency had been either tested by or developed with NASA. Now, the red LEDs would give healing warmth. The blue LEDs would put you to sleep. Would this be the same type of light energy frequencies that we're talking about?
It's a portion of it. It's just like saying, I've got a friend who does energy healing technique XYZ. Mm-hmm. Is this the same thing? No, it's a portion of it. This is a spectrum that appears from all the evidence collected so far to contain everything that we've been able to access in the way of energy healing and a full spectrum of light. So in other words, the difference between accessing reconnective healing and an energy healing technique is that with the technique we access a subset of energy. The difference with the reconnective healing spectrum, as science calls it today, and using individual beams of colored light or trying to bring in certain color light frequencies is that we're bringing in subsets. So A, we only have the portion of the red in that light beam that you're talking about, for instance, that we're able to find, recognize, and reproduce. B, red is all that comes through at that moment according to the limitation of the human conscious educated mind who made the decision and chose red over blue. But wouldn't you rather have the full spectrum of light? When we have the full spectrum of light, it's clear. Mm-hmm. It's a clear white beam of light, which controls all of it. If we push that spectrum out through a light prism, we see all the various colors.
Right.
We can select the ones that our eyes see, but only the ones our eyes see. We might even choose to remove some and add others because we think that they might be better because we found that red is good in a certain instance. But as soon as we rearrange it, if we push that back out through the prism, we no longer have that perfect clear white light because we've changed perfection. And any way you try to change or alter or modify perfection, you modify it from perfection. If we offer the full comprehensive light beam, then at any given second, at any given moment, no matter what given change is going on in that human being, whether the practitioner recognizes it or not, whether the equipment is capable of altering it or not, the perfection of the intelligence of God, love, or universe, pick the word you want, allows it to be perfect within every nanosecond. Isn't that better? Wouldn't you prefer that?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I would think. That's what happens with reconnective healing. The gift is that this allows us to completely transcend the complex energy healing techniques that are out there, old and even the new ones that come out every 3 months in the latest books, And the challenge is whether or not we're willing to. The gift is that this allows us to completely demystify the healing process, and the challenge is whether or not we're willing to allow it to be demystified. And if we're not willing to completely transcend our techniques so that we can facilitate greater healings with greater ease for the people who come to see us, we need to ask ourselves why. And if we're not willing to completely demystify the healing process and allow it to be clear and transparent for everyone who comes to see us, then we need to ask ourselves why. And if we're not willing to ask ourselves why, then we really need to ask ourselves why we're not willing to ask ourselves why, because therein lies the answer of where we're holding ourselves back from allowing ourselves to truly master healing and allow everyone to rise to the level of 100%.
We've got about a minute left before I have to take my final break, Doctor. Can anyone learn how to do reconnective healing?
I was worried about that, which is why I didn't want to teach it for the first couple of years. But when I finally found that everyone can learn how to do it, you can't do it by sitting in a corner and trying to ohm it in because you feel entitlement any more than you can sit in the top floor of a hotel room and try to ohm in the ocean at the beach. A, it's not coming, and B, if it does, you better run. It's a tsunami. But you do have to, you have to put your spiritual little butt in a bathing suit and go into the ocean, and then and only then can you become as wet with ocean water as anyone else. But I'll tell you what, when we come back from the break, let me tell you how we do teach it at the seminars. We're bringing a seminar here October 1, 2, and 3 to Los Angeles. I try to get here once every year or so to teach this.
All right, Doctor, please stand by. Exonation, our very special guest this hour, Dr. Eric Pearl. He's the author of The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. His website is www.thereconnection.com. That's www.thereconnection.com. Dr. Pearl and I return on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Nobody can tell you there's only one song worth singing. They may try and sell you 'cause it hangs them up to see someone like you. But you've gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Dr. Eric Pearl. He's the author of The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself. His website is www.thereconnection.com. That's www.thereconnection.com. Tell me, Doctor, how do you teach people to do reconnective healings in your seminars?
Well, first what happens is this. Usually at the seminars, it's a 2-day weekend, 2.5 days, meaning it's a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, here in Los Angeles on October 1st, we'll do a 3-hour presentation at the Hilton at the Universal City from about 7 to 10. And what happens is we give a presentation of how the work, tell a story about how the work originated. We talk about the philosophy. We go into the science of it. We bring up some volunteers from the audience to demonstrate the healings live so you can see them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we give you a chance to feel it in your hands, the opportunity, if you'd like. Saturday and Sunday, however, is very different. It's a working seminar. So I'm going to tell you right now, don't come. And I mean it. Don't come if you think we're all going to sit around, hold hands, drum, and, stamp our feet on the ground. It's not going to happen that way.
You mean there's nobody with a guitar singing Kumbaya?
Yeah, I was going to say that, and I didn't know there's not. There's no one singing. If there is, they'll be asked to please stop playing and interrupting the seminar. And no one will come out with crystals wrapped around their foreheads and colors appropriate to match each of their chakras. I went to a place where someone actually dressed in deer skin and wore chakra-colored crystals all over.
Oh, my God.
I couldn't believe it. Anyway, You can tell how much I'm loved in the metaphysical community because it's like, it's time to bust some paradigms here and step into the real world. And a lot of people, our energy healing technique teachers today don't, they tell us to come back and learn more, write me another check and come back and learn more.
Yeah.
And yet the masters throughout the ages have always said, don't come back. We have to develop our mastery once we're exposed to this in the silence of our own minds, but, that's a whole different story and we don't have time for that. Anyway, at the seminars, what happens is we demonstrate a level from the work from the stage, and we go to the tables, one massage table for every 4 people. We work in groups of 2 or 4. I walk around to each of the tables. Our trained team of teaching assistants goes around to each of the tables. We work with you to show you how to begin to feel different sensations. And as you feel something in one place, you'll see the person on the table, their eyes will start to dart rapidly back and forth. As we show you how to feel a different sensation in the air, you'll start to see their fingers move or their feet move, and you'll start to correlate what you're doing with what you're seeing with what you're doing, and we go back and forth like this. And by the end of Sunday, just the weekend, just one weekend, not 3 months or 3 years, you will, I can pretty much promise you, be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that I can do, if not as well, better.
Wow.
And you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that any human being on this planet can do, whether they were raised by monks in a cave in a mountaintop in Tibet or whether they moved to a church in Brazil and changed their last name to Of God. It doesn't matter the story. It only matters our willingness to transcend the story.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about, Of God in Brazil.
I'm not talking about anyone. It's a concept.
Yeah. Doctor, great pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for sharing with us here in the X Zone, sir. I look forward to the next time you and I meet. Until then, thank you very much for the wonderful work you're doing, and keep the great work up, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Doctor.
Bye.
Exonation, Dr. Eric Pearl has been our guest this hour. www.thereconnection.com. That's www.thereconnection.com. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue right here in the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.